You are listening to HOA Outplayed. They tried to bury the audit log. A neighbor tried to hand me an old notice and Karen screamed that passing documents was harassment. Your file says repeat offender. She was standing 3 feet from me in the mailbox cluster, voice rising like a siren, and I had not even opened my mouth yet. The notice in the neighbor's hand was yellowed at the edges, dated 2 years back, addressed to someone who did not live here anymore. Vanessa Robinson, board secretary of the Woodland Crossing Property Owners Association, stepped between us like she was Secret Service and slapped her hand over the paper. You do not get to see that, she snapped. That is association business. The neighbor, an older man named Greg, just blinked and backed up a step. I work as a medical device sales rep, always driving and meeting clients, and I have seen plenty of difficult people, but this was a new flavor of territorial. I held up both hands. I am just checking my mail, I said. Greg nodded toward me and tried again. I thought he should see it, he said. It is the same kind of notice you got, right? Vanessa snatched the envelope out of his hand and stuffed it into her jacket pocket. What you think does not matter, she said. You signed the covenants. Now you live the covenants. That phrase again. She loved that line. I had heard it 4 times in the past month, always delivered like a judge reading a sentence. Greg mumbled an apology and walked away fast, keys jingling. Vanessa turned to me and tapped the laminated policy sheet clipped to her belt. This is Albany, New York, she said. We follow rules here. You have 3 violations on file. 3. I shook my head. I do not have any violations, I said. I checked the portal last week. Clean slate. She smiled, and it was not friendly. The portal is not always current, she said. We update at month end. It is the 1st tomorrow. After that, the fine schedule changes and you will owe the new rate plus administrative fees. I looked at the laminated sheet she was waving. It had dense blocks of text, none of it readable from where I stood, but she held it out like a shield. I worked nights, and Vanessa had a habit of scheduling enforcement stunts during my sleep window. Twice in the past 2 weeks I had woken up to someone knocking on my door at noon, holding a clipboard and a camera. Once it was her. Once it was a guy in a polo shirt who said he was a compliance inspector. Both times they wanted photos of my trash cans. I keep the cans in the garage except on pickup day, exactly per the rules, but they acted like I was running a landfill. I pulled out my phone and opened the portal app. It loaded slow, spinning for 10 seconds, then timed out with a generic error. Vanessa watched me try 3 more times, and her smile got wider. The portal is having technical difficulties, she said. That is why you need to attend the hearing. What hearing? I said. She pulled a folded paper from her other pocket and handed it over. Certified notice, she said. Delivered yesterday. You have 48 hours to respond in writing through the portal. I unfolded it. The notice listed 3 violations with dates, descriptions, and fees. Total claimed balance was $900. The violations were vague. Things like failure to maintain exterior appearance and non-compliance with landscaping standards and unapproved modification to structure. None of them matched anything I had done. I looked up. I have not modified anything, I said. My lawn guy was here Monday. Everything is compliant. Vanessa tapped the laminated sheet again. The board reviewed your property last Thursday, she said. You were not home. We documented everything. I felt my jaw tighten. I was home Thursday, I said. I work nights, so I sleep days. Nobody knocked. She shrugged. We do not have to knock for exterior inspections, she said. We can observe from the street or adjacent properties. That is in the covenants. I wanted to argue, but the notice had a hearing date printed at the bottom. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Clubhouse. If I did not show, the fines would auto-confirm, and they could file a lien within 30 days. Vanessa tucked the laminated sheet back on her belt and adjusted her lanyard. See you tomorrow, she said. Bring your checkbook. She walked toward the clubhouse, her black baseball cap pulled low, and I stood there holding the notice like it might explode. I drove home and pulled every document I had, deed, covenants, closing packet, prior owner disclosures, everything. I spread it across the kitchen table and started reading. The covenants were 40 pages of dense legalese, but the enforcement section was clear. Any violation had to be documented in writing, delivered by certified mail or hand delivery with signature, and the homeowner had 14 days to cure before any fine could be assessed. The notice Vanessa gave me had no cure period. It went straight to fines. I grabbed my phone and took a photo of the notice, then another of the covenant page. Then I checked my mailbox records online. No certified mail signature in the past 2 weeks. Nothing. She had lied about the delivery. I opened my laptop and tried the portal again. Same error. I cleared the cache, tried a different browser, even reset my password. Every time the portal timed out or threw a generic message. The HOA insists the only appeal method is the portal, and the portal conveniently breaks. That was not coincidence. I called Greg. He picked up on the second ring. "What did that notice say?" I asked. He hesitated. "I probably should not have tried to show you," he said. Vanessa made it clear I was out of line. I pushed. "Greg, I need to know," I said. "If it is the same kind of thing she is hitting me with, we might have a pattern." He sighed. "It was a violation notice from 2 years ago," he said, "addressed to the guy who lived in your house before you. Same kind of vague charges, same high fines. He paid it because he was trying to sell and did not want a lien clouding the title." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. "Did he ever see proof of the violation?" I asked. Greg laughed, bitter. "No," he said. Vanessa told him the photos were association records and he could request copies through the portal. He tried. Portal was down. He gave up and paid. I thanked him and hung up. Then I pulled the prior owner disclosures again. There was a line item in the seller's closing statement. HOA special assessment paid at closing, $450. No detail, just a number and a checkmark. I spent the next 4 hours searching online. I found the HOA website, which had a public records section. Minutes from board meetings were supposed to be posted within 10 days of each meeting. The last posted minutes were from 6 months ago. I clicked on the member directory and found Vanessa's name, secretary, elected 2019, term expires 2026. No other contact info. I clicked on the grievance procedure page. It said all appeals must be submitted in writing through the member portal or by certified mail to the management company. The management company address was listed. I wrote it down. Then I clicked on the budget documents. The most recent one was from last year. I opened it and scrolled through the line items. Most of it was normal stuff. Landscaping contract, insurance, street lighting, pool maintenance. But there was one line near the bottom that made me stop. Compliance enforcement services, $36,000 annually, paid to Cascade Property Solutions. I had never heard of them. I Googled the name. No website. No business listing. Just a registered agent filing in New York showing an LLC formed 3 years ago. The registered agent was a law office in Albany. I wrote that down too. I needed help. I remembered a guy named Tom who lived 2 streets over. He had been on the board until last year, then quit suddenly. I had talked to him once at a neighborhood cookout. He seemed fed up with the whole operation. I found his number in the directory and called. He answered and I explained the situation. Tom laughed. "Yeah, that sounds like Vanessa," he said. "She has been running that scam for at least 3 years. "Scam," I said. He lowered his voice. "Look, I cannot prove it, but I have seen enough to know something is wrong," he said. When I was on the board, Vanessa would bring these compliance reports to meetings. Thick packets, photos, notes, the whole deal. But the votes to authorize fines never felt right. Sometimes we did not have quorum. Sometimes the motion would pass and I would check the minutes later, and the vote count would be different. I pushed back twice and she accused me of obstructing enforcement. I quit after she tried to get me removed for conflict of interest. I asked what kind of conflict. He said she claimed I was friends with a homeowner who had a violation. It was nonsense, but she made it stick because she controls the minutes. If it is not in the minutes, it did not happen. I asked Tom if he still had any of those meeting packets. He said he kept everything. "I will bring them over," he said. "Give me 20 minutes. I hung up and paced the kitchen. The timeline was forming. Vanessa had been secretary since 2019. The LLC, Cascade Property Solutions, was formed 3 years ago, which would be 2022. The violations started popping up around the same time. The prior owner of my house got hit in 2023. Now it was my turn. I opened my laptop and pulled up the county property records. I searched for liens filed by Woodland Crossing Property Owners Association. 12 hits in the past 3 years. I clicked through them. Every single one had the same template language. Every single one listed compliance enforcement fees and administrative charges. Every single one was signed by Vanessa Robinson as board secretary. I screenshotted all 12. Tom showed up with a cardboard box. Inside were meeting packets, printed emails, and a thick binder with tabbed sections. He dropped it on the table. "This is everything I saved," he said. "I do not know if it will help, but it is yours." I flipped through the binder. The tabs were labeled by meeting date. I pulled the one from March 2023. The agenda listed a vote to authorize fines for 3 properties. The motion passed 4-1, but the minutes attached to the packet showed a different vote count, 5-0. I showed Tom. He nodded. "That is what I mean," he said. "She changes the numbers after the fact." I asked if anyone else on the board ever noticed. He shrugged. "The other board members do not pay close attention," he said. "Most of them just rubber stamp whatever Vanessa puts in front of them. She is very good at making things sound urgent and procedural. If you question her, she buries you in covenants and policy references until you give up." I asked about the megaphone. Tom grinned. "Oh, that thing," he said. "She bought it last year. Uses it at the mailbox cluster to announce rules and upcoming deadlines. Drives people nuts, but nobody complains because she will just tag them with a violation for disturbing the peace or some garbage." I opened another tab in the binder. This one was from July 2023. The minutes showed a vote to hire Cascade Property Solutions for enforcement services. The motion passed unanimously. But Tom had clipped a handwritten note to the page. It said "no quorum, meeting canceled. Vanessa sent email anyway." I held it up. Tom nodded. "I was not there that day," he said. "Neither were 2 other board members. Vanessa sent an email later saying the vote happened and passed. When I checked the official minutes a week later, it showed full attendance and a unanimous vote. I called her out in the next meeting. She said I was misremembering, and the secretary's record is the official record." End of discussion. I thanked Tom and he left. I sat down and started building a timeline. 2019, Vanessa elected secretary. 2022, Cascade Property Solutions LLC formed. 2023, first wave of liens filed. The pattern was clear. She was fabricating violations, pushing them through fake votes, and collecting fees through a shell company. The question was how to prove it and how to stop it before she buried me under a lien. I had less than 24 hours before the hearing. I pulled the notice again and read the fine print. It said I could submit evidence and testimony in writing before the hearing or in person at the hearing. I decided to do both. I opened a blank document and started typing. I listed every procedural violation I had found: no certified delivery, no cure period, no photographic evidence provided, questionable vote counts, missing quorum records. I attached screenshots of the covenant language, the lien filings, and Tom's meeting packets. I saved it as a PDF and tried to upload it to the portal. The portal was still down. I printed 3 copies instead and sealed them in envelopes addressed to the board president, the management company, and Vanessa. The next morning I drove to the post office and sent all 3 envelopes certified mail, return receipt requested. Then I went to the county clerk's office and requested copies of all the lien filings. The clerk printed them and I paid the fee. I also requested the articles of organization for Cascade Property Solutions. The clerk looked it up and printed a single page. Registered agent, Dalton and Kerr Law Offices, Albany. Owner, V. Robinson. I stared at it. V. Robinson. Vanessa Robinson. She was not even hiding it. She had set up the LLC in her own name and was billing the HOA for her own enforcement services. I took a photo of the page and added it to my evidence folder. Then I went home and tried to sleep. I worked nights, and I needed to be sharp for the hearing. I set 3 alarms and crashed. I woke up at 5 p.m. The hearing was at 7. I showered, got dressed, and grabbed the tabbed binder Tom gave me plus my own packet of evidence. I also grabbed my phone and made sure it was fully charged. I wanted everything recorded. I drove to the clubhouse. The parking lot was half full. I recognized a few cars. One belonged to the board president, a retired guy named Paul. Another belonged to Vanessa. I parked and walked in. The clubhouse was a bland rectangle with a meeting room, a kitchenette, and a small gym. The meeting room had folding tables arranged in a U shape. Paul sat at the center table with 2 other board members. Vanessa sat to his right, laptop open, a stack of file folders in front of her. She looked up when I walked in and her smile was ice. "You are late," she said. I checked my watch. 6:53, I said. "Hearing starts at 7. She tapped her laptop screen. "We start on HOA time," she said. "That is 6:55. I ignored her and took a seat across from the board. 2 other homeowners were sitting in the back. I did not recognize them. Paul cleared his throat and called the meeting to order. "First item," he said. "Compliance hearing for 42 Maplewood Lane." That was my address. Vanessa opened a folder and pulled out a printed packet. She handed copies to Paul and the other 2 board members. She did not offer me one. Paul skimmed the first page. "The association has documented 3 violations at this property," he said. "Failure to maintain exterior appearance, non-compliance with landscaping standards, and unapproved modification to structure. Total fines assessed are $900. Do you have anything to say?" I stood and held up my binder. "I have documentation showing these charges are procedurally invalid," I said. "There was no certified delivery, no cure period, and no photographic evidence provided. I also have evidence suggesting the votes authorizing these fines did not follow proper quorum rules." Vanessa leaned forward. "That is a serious accusation," she said. I looked at her. "It is a serious problem," I said. Paul raised a hand. "Let him present," he said. Vanessa sat back, arms crossed. I opened the binder and walked Paul through it. I showed him the covenant language requiring certified mail and a cure period. I showed him the meeting minutes with mismatched vote counts. I showed him the quorum issue from July 2023. Then I pulled out the county records. I held up the page showing Cascade Property Solutions owned by V. Robinson. I waited for the room to catch up. Paul frowned. "Vanessa, is this accurate?" he asked. She did not blink. "That is a separate business entity," she said. "It provides compliance services to multiple HOAs in the region. There is no conflict of interest." I laughed. "You are billing this HOA $36,000 a year for enforcement, and you are the one deciding who gets enforced," I said. "That is the definition of conflict of interest." Paul looked at the other 2 board members. They looked uncomfortable. One of them, a woman named Linda, spoke up. "I did not know Vanessa owned that company," she said. "That should have been disclosed." Vanessa slapped her hand on the table. "I disclosed it when the contract was approved," she said. "It is in the minutes." I pulled Tom's note from the binder. "No quorum that day," I said. "The meeting was canceled. This vote never happened legally." Vanessa's face went red. "You are relying on the word of a disgruntled former board member who quit because he could not handle the responsibility," she said. "Tom kept records," I said. "You changed the minutes after the fact." Paul held up a hand again. "This is getting complicated," he said. "I think we need to table this hearing and get the attorney involved." Vanessa stood. "We do not need an attorney," she said. "The violations are documented. The fines are authorized. This is a stall tactic." I turned to Paul. "If you proceed without addressing these procedural issues, I will file a complaint with the state," I said. "And I will request a full audit of every enforcement action taken in the past 3 years. Paul looked pained. "Let me call the attorney," he said. "We will reconvene next week." Vanessa grabbed her laptop. "This is not over," she said. She walked out. The room was silent for a moment. Then Linda leaned over to Paul and whispered something. He nodded. I stayed seated. Paul looked at me. "Leave your evidence packet," he said. "I will forward it to the attorney tonight." I handed it over. Then I walked out. Vanessa was in the parking lot, leaning against her car talking on her phone. I ignored her and got in my car. As I pulled out, she stepped in front of my car and held up her hand. I stopped. She walked to my window. I rolled it down. "You think you are clever," she said. "You signed the covenants. Now you live the covenants." I kept my face neutral. "See you next week," I said. I rolled the window up and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I saw her standing there, phone still in hand, staring after me. If you are enjoying this, hit the like button and subscribe for more neighborhood justice stories. The next morning, I got a call from Paul. "The attorney reviewed your evidence," he said. "He is recommending we suspend all pending enforcement actions until we complete an internal review." I felt a small surge of relief. "What about Vanessa?" I asked. Paul hesitated. "She is still secretary," he said. But the attorney advised us to put a second signature requirement on all enforcement notices going forward. It is not enough, I said. She owns the company you are paying for enforcement. That is fraud. Paul sighed. The attorney is looking into that too, he said. But these things take time. We have to follow procedure. I thanked him and hung up. I knew procedure was code for slow walking until people forgot. I needed to keep pressure on. I called Tom. He picked up and I told him what happened. He laughed. You got further than I ever did, he said. But do not expect them to move fast. Vanessa has allies on that board. I asked who. He named 2 board members I had not met. They have been there since before Vanessa, he said. They do whatever she says because she does all the paperwork and they do not want the workload. I asked if he knew anyone else who had been hit with bogus fines. He said there was a couple on Birchwood Court who paid a lien last year. I will text you their number, he said. I called the couple. The wife answered. Her name was Diane. I explained who I was and what I was investigating. She was quiet for a moment. We paid $4,000 to clear a lien, she said. Vanessa told us we had unapproved exterior paint and landscaping violations. We repainted the trim the exact color listed in the covenants and had a landscaper come out twice a month. It did not matter. She kept adding fees and threatening foreclosure. We just wanted it to stop. I asked if she still had the paperwork. She said she did. I will scan it and email it to you, she said. I gave her my email. Then I asked if she remembered the vote authorizing the lien. She laughed, bitter. There was no vote, she said. Vanessa told us the board had reviewed it and authorized the lien at a closed executive session. We never got to appeal. The management company told us the only way to stop it was to pay. I thanked her and hung up. I was building a case, but I needed something ironclad. Something that would force the board to act and force Vanessa out. That afternoon I got an email from Diane. Attached were scans of the lien filing, the notice she received, and a series of emails with the management company. I read through them. The notice had the same template language I had seen before. The email showed Diane asking for proof of the violations and the management company saying all enforcement documentation was maintained by the board secretary and she needed to request it through the portal. I checked the dates. The emails were from last year, right around the time Tom quit the board. I opened my own portal login and tried again, still down. I called the management company. A woman answered. I asked about the portal. She said they were aware of the issue and working on it. I asked how long it had been down. She hesitated. About 2 weeks, she said. I asked if there was an alternate way to submit appeals. She said certified mail to their office. I asked if they had received my certified letter. She put me on hold. 2 minutes later, she came back. We have it, she said. It was forwarded to the board attorney. I asked when I would get a response. She said the attorney would respond within 10 business days per the bylaws. I hung up and did the math. 10 business days meant 2 weeks. The hearing was already postponed. Vanessa was buying time. I needed something faster. I opened my email and started searching. I found an old newsletter from the HOA dated 2 years ago. It had a link to a member survey. I clicked it. The survey was hosted on a third-party site and still active. I filled it out and submitted it. At the end, there was a comment box. I wrote a detailed summary of what I had found and included my contact info. Then, I searched for the HOA's Facebook page. It was public. I scrolled through the posts. Most were announcements about pool hours and trash pickup schedules, but there were a few complaint threads. I clicked on one from 6 months ago. A homeowner had posted about a violation notice and asking if anyone else had received similar notices. Vanessa had replied with a long comment about covenant enforcement and community standards. The thread had 20 replies, most of them from homeowners saying they had gotten notices too. I screenshotted the whole thread. That night I could not sleep. I kept thinking about Vanessa's face in the parking lot. She was not scared. She was angry. That meant she thought she could still win. I needed to figure out her next move. I opened my laptop and pulled up the covenant document again. I searched for the enforcement section. There was a paragraph I had missed before. It said the board could authorize emergency enforcement actions without a hearing if there was an immediate health or safety risk. I felt my stomach drop. That was her escape hatch. She would claim my property was a health or safety risk and skip the hearing entirely. I called Tom. It was late, but he answered. Does the board ever use the emergency enforcement clause? I asked. He groaned. Once, he said. Vanessa pushed it through for a property that had a broken fence. She said it was a liability risk. The homeowner fixed it the next day, but she still hit him with a fine for the emergency response. It was bogus, but nobody fought it. I asked if there was any way to block it. He said the only check was the board president. If Paul does not sign off, it does not happen. I thanked him and hung up. The next morning I got a text from Tom. Check your mailbox. I went outside. There was a certified envelope. I signed for it and opened it. Inside was a notice from the HOA. Emergency enforcement action authorized for 42 Maplewood Lane due to immediate safety risk. Unapproved structural modification creating liability exposure. Compliance required within 24 hours or the association will contract repair and assess costs plus penalties. I read it twice. There was no structural modification. My house was identical to every other house on the block. I called Paul. He did not answer. I called the management company. The same woman answered. I asked about the emergency notice. She said the board president authorized it this morning. I asked what the modification was. She said she did not have the details. I needed to contact the board secretary. I called Vanessa. She answered on the first ring. You got the notice, she said. Good. I kept my voice calm. What modification are you talking about? I asked. She laughed. The deck railing, she said. It is 6 inches too high per county code. That is a safety violation and a liability for the association. I walked to my back deck. The railing was standard builder grade, same as every other house. I took photos. Then I called the county building department. I asked about deck railing codes. The clerk said residential railings had to be between 36 and 42 inches. I measured mine. 38 inches. Well within code. I took more photos with the tape measure visible. I called Vanessa back. The railing is code compliant, I said. I have photos. She did not miss a beat. The association standard is more restrictive than county code, she said. You signed the covenants, now you live the covenants. I asked where in the covenants it said that. She said Appendix C. I pulled up the covenant PDF and searched. There was no Appendix C. I told her that. She said it was added by amendment in 2022. I asked for a copy. She said it was in the member portal. The portal that has been down for 2 weeks, I said. She hung up. I stood on the deck, phone in hand, trying not to lose it. She was making up rules in real time. I called Tom. He answered and I told him what happened. He swore. That is a new one, he said. There is no Appendix C. The covenants have not been amended since 2018. I asked how to prove it. He said the county clerk records all covenant amendments. If it is not filed, it is not valid. I drove back to the county clerk's office. The same clerk helped me. I requested all recorded amendments to the Woodland Crossing covenants. She printed 2 pages. Both were from 2018. Nothing from 2022. I paid for certified copies and took photos. I called Paul again. This time he answered. I told him about the emergency notice and the fake appendix. He was quiet. I did not authorize that notice, he said. I asked what he meant. He said Vanessa sent him an email this morning saying the county inspector had flagged my property and the board needed to act immediately. He signed off without checking because she said it was time sensitive. I felt my anger spike. She lied to you, I said. There is no county inspector. The railing is code compliant, and there is no Appendix C, Paul sighed. I am going to call the attorney, he said. This has gone too far. I hung up and sat in my car. I had the evidence, I had the timeline, I had witnesses. But Vanessa was still moving faster than I could counter. I needed to flip the script. I needed to catch her in the act. That afternoon I got a call from Greg, the neighbor who had tried to show me the old notice. He said he had something I needed to see. I drove to his house. He met me at the door and handed me a thumb drive. What is this? I asked. Doorbell footage, he said, from 2 nights ago. Vanessa was at your house. I felt my pulse kick up. I went inside and plugged the thumb drive into my laptop. The video was timestamped 11:47 p.m. It showed Vanessa walking up my driveway in the dark, carrying a clipboard and a flashlight. She stopped at my deck, shined the light on the railing, and took photos with her phone. Then she walked around the side of the house and out of frame. The video ended. I played it again. She was trespassing, documenting my property at night without permission. I looked at Greg. "Can I keep this?" I asked. He nodded. "I made a copy," he said. "I thought you might need it." I thanked him and left. I had my trump card. I waited for the right audience, because the reveal needed witnesses. Paul called me that evening. "The attorney wants to meet," he said. "Tomorrow at 10 a.m. his office. Vanessa will be there." I said I would be there. I spent the rest of the night organizing my evidence. I had the binder from Tom, the county records, the doorbell video, the bogus emergency notice, and the fake appendix claim. I printed everything and put it in a new binder with tabs. I also printed a timeline on a single page showing every step of Vanessa's scheme. The next morning I drove to the attorney's office. It was in a low-rise building near downtown. The lobby was bland corporate. I checked in and waited. Vanessa arrived 10 minutes later. She did not look at me. Paul and the attorney came out together. The attorney was a middle-aged guy in a suit. Name was Kerr. We went into a conference room. Kerr sat at the head of the table. Paul sat next to him. Vanessa sat across from me. Kerr opened a folder. "I have reviewed the materials submitted by both parties," he said. "There are significant procedural concerns." Vanessa leaned forward. "Those concerns are based on misinterpretations and incomplete records," she said. I stayed quiet. Kerr looked at me. "Do you have anything to add?" he asked. I opened my binder. "I have additional evidence," I said. I walked him through it. The timeline, the quorum issues, the fake vote, the shell company, the trespassing video. I played the video on my laptop. The room went silent. Vanessa's face was stone. Kerr looked at her. "Miss Robinson, can you explain this?" he asked. She did not blink. "I was conducting a routine inspection," she said. "The covenants allow exterior inspections from adjacent properties or public rights of way." "That is not a public right of way," I said. "That is my driveway." And it was midnight. Kerr held up a hand. "Miss Robinson, I am going to recommend the board suspend all enforcement actions pending a full review," he said. "I am also recommending you recuse yourself from any enforcement decisions going forward." Vanessa stood. "You do not have the authority to remove me," she said. "I was elected by the membership." Kerr stayed calm. "I am not removing you," he said. "I am advising the board. They will vote." Vanessa looked at Paul. "You are going to let him do this," she said. Paul would not meet her eyes. "I think it is the right move," he said. Vanessa grabbed her bag. "Fine," she said. "But this is not over. We can tow first and explain later. That is how enforcement works." She walked out. The door slammed. Kerr looked at me. "I am sorry you had to deal with this," he said. "We will work on cleaning it up." I left the office and sat in my car. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from relief. I called Tom. "It is done," I said. "She is out." He let out a long breath. "I never thought I would see the day," he said. The board met 3 days later. Paul called me and said Vanessa had resigned as secretary. The board also voted to terminate the contract with Cascade Property Solutions and hired a new management company to handle enforcement. They also voted to implement an updated enforcement policy that bans surprise inspections without written notice. Paul said the attorney was drafting a correction letter to be sent to every homeowner who had been hit with a violation in the past 3 years. The letter would explain the procedural failures and offer refunds for any fines paid under invalid actions. I asked about the liens. Paul said the attorney was working on releasing them. It would take time, but it would happen. I thanked him and hung up. Then I called Diane. I told her what happened. She started crying. "Thank you," she said. "You do not know what this means." I told her to expect a refund check in the next few weeks. She thanked me again and hung up. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Kerr. "The board has finalized the corrective actions," he said. "I am sending you a formal letter documenting the resolution. You should receive it tomorrow." I asked about Vanessa. He said she had not responded to any communications. "The board is considering a special election to fill the secretary position," he said. I hung up and checked my mail. There was an envelope from the HOA. Inside was a letter on association letterhead. It was addressed to all members and signed by Paul. It detailed the procedural failures, the invalid enforcement actions, and the corrective measures. At the bottom was a line that made me smile. The Woodland Crossing Property Owners Association apologizes for any inconvenience or distress caused by these errors, and is committed to transparent and fair governance moving forward. The HOA sends a correction email retracting the smear. I folded the letter and put it in the binder. Then I checked the member portal. It was back online. I logged in. My account showed 0 violations. 0 balance due. I closed the laptop and leaned back. It was over. A week later, I was at the mailbox cluster when I saw Greg. He waved. "I heard Vanessa moved," he said. "Really?" I asked. He nodded. "Sold her house last week. I guess she did not want to stick around." I did not blame her. The neighborhood had turned on her fast once word got out. Someone had posted the correction letter in the Facebook group, and the comments were brutal. People were sharing their own stories of bogus fines and intimidation. A few were talking about a class action. I did not know if that would go anywhere, but it felt good to see people pushing back. I grabbed my mail and walked home. Inside was another envelope from the HOA. I opened it. It was a check for $900, the amount Vanessa had tried to fine me. Attached was a note from Paul. "Karen gets corrected by the HOA attorney in plain language." Her own clip proves the opposite of her claim. I smiled. The doorbell video had done exactly what I needed it to do. I deposited the check and archived everything in a file box. I did not think I would need it again, but I was not taking chances. The next board meeting was open to all members. I went. The room was packed. Paul opened with an apology and a summary of the corrective actions. Then he introduced the new management company. They laid out the updated enforcement policy. Every violation notice would now require 2 board signatures, photographic evidence, and a mandatory 14-day cure period. Appeals could be submitted by email, certified mail, or in person. The portal would have a public audit log showing all enforcement actions and votes. It was not perfect, but it was a huge improvement. At the end of the meeting, Paul asked if anyone had questions. A woman in the back raised her hand. "What happens if this happens again?" she asked. Paul looked at Kerr. The attorney stood. "If any board member is found to be acting in bad faith or using their position for personal gain, they can be removed by member vote," he said. "And if the conduct rises to the level of fraud, it is a criminal matter." The room was quiet. Then someone started clapping. It spread. Paul looked relieved. The meeting adjourned. I walked out into the parking lot. The sun was setting, and the air was cool after a short storm. Puddles reflected the sky, and a few scattered papers blew across the pavement. I got in my car and sat for a moment. I thought about Vanessa, about the fake notices and the fake votes and the shell company. I thought about the homeowners who had paid because they did not know how to fight back. I thought about Tom, who quit because he could not win alone. And I thought about Greg, who handed me that doorbell video and gave me the last piece I needed. It was not luck. It was people deciding they had had enough. I started the engine and drove home. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Tom. "You did it. Drinks on me next weekend." I sent back a thumbs up. Then I turned on the radio and rolled down the windows. The neighborhood looked different now. Quieter. Calmer. Like someone had lifted a weight. I pulled into my driveway and looked at the deck. The railing was still 38 inches. Still code compliant. Still exactly what it should be. I grabbed my bag and went inside. The tabbed binder was still on the kitchen table. I picked it up and put it on the shelf. I did not need it anymore. But I was glad I had it. I will bring you another story soon.